Coming up on Open Door Cleveland, J.T. Gray, Chillicothe-based youth minister whose George Floyd-inspired video Wash, Rinse, Repeat has gone viral. And Cleveland music legend Lem Adams sets the record straight on the history of the jazz group Forecast. Open Door with Vince Robinson is next.
This is Aja Jones,
Tracy Clark,
Kiko,
Yolanda Armstrong,
Brian Webster.
This is T.C. Lewis, and you are listening to WOVU 95.9 FM.
This is Vince Robinson on Open Door, and we have a very special guest on the line with us. His name is John Gray. He is the son of John Gray Sr., who is the pastor of Zion Baptist Church in Chillicothe, Ohio. John, or JT as he has known or is known, has created a music video that is creating quite a buzz. So why don't we jump right into it? Tell us about the video, JT, the title of it, and what you want to express with this video.
Right. The song is called Wash, Rinse, and Repeat. And for the song, it was just kind of my frustrations and venting a little bit and just kind of giving the perspective of a young black man's mindset with everything going on in the world as far as the racism and police brutality and different things that we're faced with in the black community. So I tried my best to kind of convey that message in a way that would bring awareness, but also help people see inside the mind of a young black man. So what I wanted by making the video was just to spark a conversation, just to allow people to interact and see the song, see the video, really let the words marinate and just kind of spark a conversation across the community of Chillicothe, the state of Ohio, and throughout the world the best way I knew how. And, you know, this music is kind of universal in a way that it can convey a message to different people. So that was my main goal in the music video. It's kind of gone, you know, a little viral on social media, and I'm so blessed by the opportunity to be able to be speaking with you and to be sharing that message to the people that are listening. Grateful.
Okay. So with all of that being said, what we're going to do right now is we're going to give a listen. I know this is radio and you can't see the video, but you can hear the words and you can hear the music, and they are extremely impactful. So right now we're going to take a listen to his music video.
Get a little harder every day to keep my faith in my head above the way. All out of excuses, nothing but regret. Done with all the talking, there's nothing to be said. Another fallen angel laying in the street. Please don't give a damn, wash, rinse, and repeat. One day the chains will break, but it's hard to keep believing while we wait. Sun comes up, it's another day, but still somehow feels the same. We need change, 'cause I can't breathe. We need change. There's an uprising in the streets, all because a black life don't mean a thing. Try to do it peaceful, try to turn our cheeks. If you don't see our pains, 'cause you don't want to see. Brought us here as slaves, marked for peace without the king. The cat don't have a job, all because he took a knee. Wash, rinse, and repeat. Oh, one day the chains will break, but it's hard to keep believing while we wait. Sun comes out, it's another day, still sometimes feels the same. We need change, 'cause I can't breathe. But it's hard to keep believing while we wait. One day, we'll change the bread. But it's hard to keep believing while we wait. While we wait. Sometimes another day still sometimes feels the same. We need change, 'cause I can't breathe. We need change. We need change, 'cause I can't breathe. We need change. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Another day. Another day. Another day. Another day. 'Cause I can't breathe. We need change. We need change. Change. 'Cause I can't breathe. 'Cause I can't breathe. Get a little harder every day to keep my faith and my head above the waves.
We're back on Open Door Cleveland with JT, John Gray, son of a minister down there in Chillicothe, Ohio, who has created a fantastic video that we just listened to. And I have to say, moving it was, quite moving it was to see the images that you put together with the words. Talk to us about the actual production of the video. Who did you collaborate with? Who's doing the music? And how did this idea come about?
Yeah, for the video shoot, a guy in Chillicothe named Dre Stewart, Dre Bay Photography did the video shoot. A good friend of mine, George Beverly, who's also here in Chillicothe, his brother Jamie Beverly has a church here in Chillicothe as well, helped me create the original music and composition for the song. And as far as the actual lyrics and message of the song, it started with a challenge from my father. You know, I was talking about some of my frustrations with my dad, and he was just like, you know, you write music, write how you feel into a song, and it just kind of sparked from there over the course of. I wrote the song in about 2 days, on Thursday and Friday. We recorded it on Saturday, shot the music video on Sunday, and put it out on Wednesday. It just kind of flowed, and that message came together, and everybody came together. And we recorded it at a recording studio here locally, Over the Bridge Studios, and the producer by the name of Chad McKelvey was integral in kind of putting it together and doing the master and everything. Everybody came together, and it was awesome.
Okay. So I would have to imagine that the impetus of this was created by the death of George Floyd. Would you agree?
Yeah. Between the George Floyd incident, the Breonna Taylor incident, Mr. Arbery incident, it just kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back, and I just had to, you know, relieve some of my frustrations and just kind of put it into an art form.
Okay. And so what kind of a response have you received? I know that it was probably given some coverage in the newspaper and on television as well. Tell us about what has happened since you created this video.
Oh, man, since I've created the video, it's just been so incredible, just the reception, not only here in Chillicothe and Ross County. We were just on 10 TV News in Columbus yesterday, doing a podcast interview with OSO Lounge and out of Chicago. Later on this week, I've been in communication with him. It's just a lot of like people and celebrities and people in the music industry have reposted on Instagram, Facebook, and it's just it's been awesome. You know, it's been a really great reception. Really, people are really listening to the words and really identifying with the words, and it's just got a really great reception over the last few days and weekend.
Glad to hear that. I would like you to talk about the climate in Chillicothe. I happen to be of a lineage that was born there, or not necessarily born there, but lived a significant amount of his life there. My father is Robert J. Robinson Sr. He is a former deacon at Floral Baptist Church in Masseyville, which is a village located very close to Chillicothe, and he was also the president of the NAACP of the Ross County unit for 19 years. He was succeeded by Reverend Ole Burton, who was succeeded by my sister, Adrian D'Souza. So I have somewhat of an awareness of what it's like living there in Chillicothe, but I'd like to get an idea from you what your feeling is about the racial climate in Chillicothe.
Yeah, the racial climate in Chillicothe, it's, what you would expect out of a small, predominantly white town with a lot of obstacles and different things like that, racial tension. But there's also been kind of this great awakening over the last week or so, it seems like, as far as, with the music video and the reception and the protests and rallies that have been going on, really awesome. Some different, church leaders and NAACP speaking out on podcasts and creating some legislation changes with the mayor and as far as police conduct and training and just some kind of things like that, that I feel like we are starting to spark great conversations that can ultimately shift the paradigm in Ross County and Chillicothe in a positive way. But it's just as far as just kind of, just beginning that conversation and moving towards a change. And just the black community in Chillicothe, as you know, is just very close-knit, very proud, very strong group of people with great minds, great intellect. Even the younger generation is kind of starting to get on board and just doing things like that. Because where I work right now, I am a counselor in the juvenile court system. So every single day I work with young disenfranchised kids that are within the juvenile court system to try to, set goals, try to, push them towards success, but getting them to understand that, beyond what they see, there's so much more of this world that they can, accomplish and do. And it starts with conversation, it starts with encouragement, and it starts with, embracing cultures, embracing people that are different than yourselves, having those conversations. And I think that here in Chillicothe, we're starting to see those kind of conversations taking place, and I think it's moving in the right direction, but we still got a lot to work to do as far as bridging that racial gap and divide here in town.
Okay. We're speaking with John Gray, a.k.a. JT. I think the middle name is Troy, and some folks probably call you Troy as well, I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
But JT has done a great thing in creating a music video, as he described. He put it together over the space of the weekend, and it is a voice that is being heard around the world. We're going to continue our conversation with JT after these messages right here on 95.9 WOVU Cleveland. This is Vince Robinson, and this is Open Door Cleveland. We'll be right back.
My name is Robert Johnson Jr.
This is Corey Jenkins.
And Courtney Jenkins.
This is Artemis Carter.
Hi, this is Anita Isom.
This is Delvis Valentine.
This is Susan Lacotte.
Eric Nolan is in the building.
I am Talitha Kubabe, and you're listening to 95.9 FM WOVU.
We're back with John Gray, JT. He is a praise and worship leader and youth minister at Zion Baptist Church in Chillicothe, Ohio. He's done a music video that we have heard on this program, And I'm sure that at some point you may hear it or see it again. You can go to YouTube, and we'll let JT tell you how you can access that video so that you can view it as well as listen to it. And when we ended our conversation before the break, we were talking about youth, specifically his outreach to youth. And I want to talk to you about that. Being in the church and connecting with young people, I would have to imagine right now is a challenge because so many young people are walking away from religion. So talk to us about what it's like for you to reach out to young people who, some of whom have been turned off.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, you know, in this day and age, you know, because a lot of times when we were growing up, you know, our parents went to the church, so it wasn't really an option like you're going to church, you know. Now in this generation, the kids, you know, with everything else going on, social media, different things, different culture, different beliefs, they're not, you know, being as open to coming into the church. So that's where the street ministries and meeting these kids where they are, you know, making, you know, the Bible, making religion, making the church, you know, marketable to young people by, you know, having fun, you know, doing different things within the community, giving them different kind of experiences, different youth nights, different things like that, and just meeting them where they are. And one of the biggest things that we see is this, you know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So really meeting them in the community, having these open dialogues, being a presence in the school system, you know, all of these things, when they see you, they see your consistency, and then they see your message, and also you're allowing, you know, things to be fun, allowing them to be as they are, you know, meeting them where they are. It really affects great change in getting them to be a part of not only the youth stuff and the out of church ministry, but also being involved and active members in the church and in their schools and community.
Yes, and I wanted to also talk about the parallels between that and being engaged in political activity, because when you look at social change historically, it has always been young people who have been on the front line of it. And I'm just wondering, you know, again, after having conversations with my sister and how challenging it is to get young people involved in an organization like the NAACP, and in accordance with that, getting them involved in things that relate to the church. What do you see as the challenges in engaging young people in both religious and political activism?
Yeah, some of the major challenges as far as political and religion is just, you know, keeping the same foundations and principles, of course, but getting away from some of those, you know, historic ideologies and things like that. You know, a lot of times these institutions are created and set up in a way that is kind of a hierarchy of needs. And, you know, we focus on, you know, the clothing banks and the food pantries, and we just kind of expect, you know, the teenagers and the younger generation to fall in line, but we're not really offering them many opportunities and different things to really motivate and market those things to them. And as far as, you know, the NAACP and other political movements, I think that if a lot of, you know, teenagers and parents and stuff knew about what was going on, it's not, to me anyways, you know, this is just my perspective, of course, there's not a lot of marketing opportunities that kind of focus on the younger generations. You know, they have the marches, they have, you know, banquets and different things like that, but I think in order to really engage the kids and the younger generation, it's going to be a little more than just, hey, this is a dinner, or hey, come out and do this because your grandparents have done it, or everybody else. It's got to be something that really focuses on the need of the kids in the community, and also, you know, marketing on their skill sets. Strong presence on social media, strong, like I said, strong presence in the schools. You know, they need to see, you know, these people being active members, not only in their own sectors, but also, you know, moving outside of those sectors into places that kids, teenagers, and younger adults congregate to really motivate and encourage them to you know, be a part of the movement that's going on right now. Because, like you said, it's imperative that the younger generation get involved politically, get involved, in their schools, in their student councils, and different things to be a voice, to affect that change from a local, state, and federal level. You have to be able to affect that change in your own communities, in your own neighborhoods, and within your own peer culture first. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So we are navigating a kind of a new frontier in that we're in the age of a pandemic that has affected the entire population of the planet. I'm just wondering what the so-called new rules that we have in place are having. What impact are they having on your efforts to organize and to engage with folks who have been used to coming to church on a regular basis?
Yeah, the really cool thing about this pandemic is that it has, pushed a lot of people to create new avenues of outreach, whether that be, live streaming, whether that be a more effective presence on social media, Zoom sessions, Zoom youth group sessions or Zoom counseling sessions through internet access, making sure that, kids in low-income households have access to internet, computers, and different things like that. And just really being able to market through social media and the internet has become super imperative to get the message out there and to offer those support. So if the best thing I think that could have came out of the coronavirus in this time of, unrest is just pushing people beyond their normal means of communication.
Okay. So you found other ways to engage folk who might not ordinarily be engaged, and because you can reach them through social media platforms and electronic platforms that allow that communication, you're able to move things forward.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, the name of the video is Wash, Rinse, Repeat. It is on YouTube. John, tell us how they can check you out, where they need to go.
Yeah, if you want to check out the song on YouTube, you just go to John Gray and type in Wash, Rinse, and Repeat. Also on my Facebook, there is both the YouTube link and the actual Facebook link, just under John Gray on Facebook, or Dre Day Photography. On my Instagram, I'm just John Gray on Instagram, and this week on Friday we will be releasing the song on all streaming services and platforms, i.e. Twitter, TikTok, Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal. All the major streaming services will be distributed on Friday of this week. So it's just been a really awesome push. We've getting really great awareness on the music videos through different streaming platforms. We're up over 70,000 views just between a couple platforms, and YouTube is really starting to spread and everything like that. So when it releases on the distribution on the major streaming sites, go download that, buy it on iTunes, whatever you want to do to listen to the song, save it to your stories and streams, and help me spread the message of hope and get the word out there, man. I'm so grateful.
Okay. Well, I have to let our listening audience know that this show is being recorded. So the 12th of June is the Friday that John just alluded to. So by the time this airs, the 12th will have passed. So that means that you will be able to go to all those respective streaming services and get access to Wash, Rinse, and Repeat. John, it's been an extreme pleasure to have this conversation with you. But before I let you go, I have to make it known that your father is not the John Gray that is the minister at a church somewhere else in America. And I'm sure that those probably get mixed up every once in a while. So we need to set the record straight. You have a very great name, and it is shared by another couple of ministers. But the John Gray that we're talking about is John Gray, Senior and Junior.
Yes, sir.
Okay, from Chillicothe, Ohio, and they're doing equally great things as well. So once again, I commend you on putting together a very fine product. a very fine project that we look forward to seeing and hearing in the future. And I wish you success in your efforts to minister to young folk, and also what you're doing on the job, because I would have to imagine that what you do at work is probably an extension of what you do in church.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for reaching out to me and having me on the show and just spreading that message. I really appreciate it.
Okay. John Gray right here on Open Door Cleveland with Vince Robinson. We'll be right back after these messages.
I count, you count, your grandparents count, newborns count, and everyone you've seen today counts. If you've lived in the country only a few weeks or for your entire life, you count. If you live alone, with family, with friends, or with people you don't know all that well, you all count. Everyone in Cleveland counts. And everyone living in your household on April 1st needs to get counted as part of the 2020 census. An accurate count informs how billions of dollars in federal funding gets distributed annually for health clinics, after-school activities, road repairs, and hundreds of other programs. Shape your future. Start here. Visit 2020census.gov.
When you're in my car, we're listening to WOVU 95.9 FM.
Welcome back to Open Door Cleveland. I have been joined by Lem Adams, and Lem is a legend here in Cleveland. He is the founder of a group named Forecast, and the pedigree speaks for itself. They've been around forever, and they're still around. They're doing great things in Cleveland, so we want to acknowledge the gifts that they have brought to Cleveland. But I'm just excited to be having this conversation. You know, Lem and I go way back. I see him in Detroit almost every year, faithfully, I would say. And I have some good news. If you haven't heard, the Detroit Jazz Festival is going to happen this year.
This year, really?
Yeah, this year. So with that, I'm going to welcome Lem Adams to Open Door Cleveland. Detroit Jazz Festival, Labor Day weekend, 2020.
Wow, that is news for me. And guess what? Because we traditionally go to that jazz festival, I got a few people I need to reach to let them know that the jazz festival is still on, because it canceled my reservations, for my hotel reservations and everything. Are you still going?
Yeah. I mean, if they were having it, I was going. If I have to be there with a mask on, I'm going to be there with a mask on. But yeah, Detroit is something that we do every year. So it may not be on the same scale it was before, because I can imagine there may be some artists that may not participate because of whatever scheduling issues they might have had, or, whatever. But the show will go on. It will be an adjusted program, but, they had Herbie Hancock coming back. They have Ben Vereen that's going to be a part of the Jazz Festival. There's just so many folks that are involved. So, so that's the good news for today. But let's talk about Lem Adams in Cleveland, because, well, first of all, you have posted prodigiously photographs that you have taken with folks who are known around the world. And I would have to suspect that you are known around the world just because of that alone. You started a group, I don't know how long ago, called Forecast. So
okay. Let me stop you right there, Vince.
Okay. All right.
Let's put this in question form.
All right.
Because it gets technical.
Okay.
First of all, I did not start Forecast.
Okay.
I am an original member of Forecast, but it was started, and I'm putting it out there because I've been through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to correct the records right now for those who are listening.
Let the record show.
Let the record show that the band started by a young man named Bob Fry. That's Frey. Okay, and I've been through complicated situations with this before, and I want to get the record straight. He started the band, and then he left and moved to New York, and I think he was gone, I don't know how many years. I don't want to really say because he would rather be the person answering those questions. But he left for about 22 years, something like that. And he is now back in Cleveland. And like I said, it gets complicated because I kept the band going and incorporated the band and been running it ever since. I never really asked for the lead spot or to want to, all I wanted to do was play the vibes. So let's just, for the record, I didn't start the band. He did. I'm still one of the sole surviving beginner, members of the band. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I incorporated and kept the band going. And that's pretty much the end of that. And I don't even like to get deep into that conversation because it gets ugly.
No worries. But the one thing that can be said, because I've watched the group over the years, and I've seen quite a number of musicians that have been part of the group at some time, and some have moved on to other things. But the one thing that has been consistent has been Lem Adams in that group. I would have to imagine that your bassist is probably another one of those folks who's been around for a long time.
Well, the bassist is Gary Stevenson, and Gary actually was the third bass player from the day that the band started. And he's been in there quite some time, but he was not the original bass player.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The original bass player was a brother that passed a few years back. His name was Daryl Pitts. I'm not sure. I think you knew Daryl Pitts, didn't you?
Yeah, the name is really familiar to me, and I should know him, but I'm long in the tooth, so my memory fails me every once in a while. But I do remember his transition, and I do remember some of the conversations that were around that. But
Daryl Pitts, he was a beautiful brother.
Mm-hmm.
He passed a few years back. He was the first bass player, and then the second bass player was a guy named Tony Severino.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony was actually the one that came up with the name Forecast. And several of us in the band at that time had threw in some names in the hat to see what we could name the band. When he threw that in, and at that time we were playing some weather report stuff, and it just seemed only logical. Fine, let's call it Forecast.
Okay.
Now the Forecast actually breaks down, not necessarily relating to the weather, but it breaks down to forecast, meaning things to come.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we liked that, and we stuck with that, and it just kept going. And that's been an ongoing thing now since, I don't know, 1979, 1980.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time. There are very few groups that have been around for that long. When I think of Forecast and I think of Horns and Things, you guys are probably the ones that have the longest tenure in terms of, being musicians who have been playing jazz for such a long time. Groups come and go, but to have that kind of staying power, that really speaks a lot to the perseverance and the stick-to-itiveness that you have. You chose an uncommon instrument when it comes to playing out. I think you and Cecil Rucker might be the only vibraphonists that have been doing what you've been doing for so long. What was it about the vibraphone that attracted you to that instrument?
I personally, my relationship with the vibraphone goes way back with Mr. Roy Ayers. And we're talking about back in the day when he was a regular at the Syrah House, and I would be there every time he came to town. I would, check him out. And I was always fascinated with the instrument. At the time that I wanted to be a musician, I don't know, things just kind of, it was a weird kind of a thing that I saw a set of vibes sitting in the window at Bill Cap Piano over in East Cleveland. I went inside the store and I asked the gentleman, I says, do you sell vibes? And he says, no. I says, are those real vibes? He says, yes. So I asked if I could climb up in the window and play on them. Now they don't sell vibes, but they just had a mannequin sitting over a set of vibes. So he gave me a couple of mallets and I started playing on them. And the guy says, how long have you been playing? I says, I have. I've never played on these things before. So I was kind of, impressed with the fact that he thought I played. I says, no, I don't play. So I asked him how much would he sell them for, and at that time he said $1,000. And I said, no, you don't just walk into a store and spend $1,000 and you don't even know what you're doing on the instrument. So I went to the bank and I got $1,000 out. And I went back and I talked to this guy and I bugged this guy. And about 3 hours later, I talked him down to like 500. He says, take them, please, and leave the store, please. So I got the vibes for $500 and I took them home. And my life just changed that day. And all of my buddies that would call me later on at night said, man, let's go out and hit the clubs. I says, no, I can't. I gotta learn how to play these things.
Yes.
So that was a consistent thing that I just stayed in. And then I had a couple of embarrassing moments trying to rush out here on the scene with them. And then that made me realize, I says, yeah, you really need to slow your roll down and learn a little bit of theory or something before you even think about going out here on this instrument, because it's just not that simple.
Mm. I'd have to imagine, too, that it has been a challenge for you as a musician because of the instrument itself. I mean, some of your compatriots can walk in with a horn and stand in front of the microphone and blow into the mic, and that's it. But for you, you have to move that. So, I'm just wondering if you've ever had any regrets about choosing an instrument that requires so much work.
Yeah, I have. Because of the size of it. And back in the day, you had to take your vibes, you had to break them down, set them up, break them down, set them up. But that took up a lot of time. So there was times I'm still breaking up and everybody else in the band is in their car and gone, and I'm still breaking down. Since then, I've figured out another way to actually move them around. I bought a small van, and I actually just take the vibes totally assembled and put them up in the van now. So that helped in that matter, but it's a large instrument. And there's sometimes we played in areas where the area is so tight, the stage might be so tight, or that the vibes would be the one instrument that's taking up most of the space. So yeah, I've run into some complications with that, but I have a love for the instrument, so I'm just going to sweat it out, figure what I can do.
Mm-hmm. I remember a few years back, Roy Ayers was in town to do a performance at Take 5.
Take 5,
and
yeah.
You were there, and I'm just imagining that there have been a lot of performances based on your love of the music that you've been privy to. Are there any performances that you've done that stand out amongst the others?
I mean, I've always enjoyed Roy Ayers, and there's been, over meeting him over several years, we've become good friends, and there's been a lot of times that he's come to town, and whenever I'm there, he'll call me up on the stage and we'll do a little session together, a little jam session together. And I've loved stuff like that, and I love Roy Ayers for that. He's a very encouraging brother. He's given me a lot of pointers, a lot of tips over the years. He can get tough too. Now he's like all the other musicians that have been out there for a long time. He'll put you on the spot sometimes. All right, we've had enough fun. Let's see if you can do this. And most musicians will do that. Me personally, I'm not that kind of musician because I've had that done to me so much. I don't ever want to see a musician go through that kind of embarrassment. But yeah, Roy he's put me out there a few times where okay, and the embarrassment makes you just sit down and say you either quit or you go back to the drawing board and try to figure out how can I hang with this, because it's all music, and there's no end to learning music. Music is like numbers. You can keep adding another digit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I remember, what musician was that said? It might have been Louis Armstrong. It said, once you think you know everything about music, you might as well quit. I think that was Louis Armstrong. Either that or it might have been Miles Davis. I don't know.
Either of the two. Both are
Right.
iconic enough to have made those statements and had them stick.
Here.
Yes. You're listening to Open Door Cleveland with Vince Robinson. Our special guest today is Lem Adams. He is one of the original members of the group Forecast, and we're having a conversation about the history of the group. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the challenges involved in having a musical group in this time of the pandemic that we are still navigating our course through, and we'll talk about a few other things that Lem does. He probably don't want the cat to get out the bag, but we'll give you just a sneak peek of what's going on out there as well. So we'll be right back with more Open Door right after this message.
WOVU 95.9 FM. Find us on Facebook. Like our page. Leave us a comment. We are WOVU 95.9, streaming live on WOVU.org.
My name is Robert Johnson Jr.
This is Corey Jenkins.
And Courtney Jenkins.
This is Artemis Carter.
Hi, this is Anita Isom.
This is Delvis Valentine.
This is Susan Lacotte.
Eric Nolan is in the building.
I am Talitha Kubabe, and you're listening to 95.9 FM WOVU.
We're back on Open Door with Vince Robinson, and our guest is Lem Adams, one of the original members of the group Forecast. When we took our break, we were talking about some of the challenges that you've had as a musician playing the instrument that you play, and you've come to a method that enables you to transport it and set it up more expeditiously than you had in the past. A few months ago, something happened. And it's almost like the rug got pulled out from under us, those of us who like to perform publicly. We are navigating a course that involves social distancing and other measures that we won't get into. But I just wanted to get your perspective on how things have changed and how you are dealing with the new paradigm that's in place.
Well, this whole social distancing thing due to this coronavirus, I mean, it's a necessary evil to actually figure out a way to be able to still perform or just communicate musically with, your fans or the world. And it's a new norm that I don't like, and I'm hoping it doesn't stay the new norm because it's ugly, it's uncomfortable. And it was unexpected. It's really set back a lot of things, set back the whole world. And we actually did our first live stream gig. That was about maybe 3 weeks ago by way of Robert Hubbard in Hub's. Hub has a little studio, and we played in there, and we did a live stream via Facebook and YouTube, and it came out much, better than I thought. I mean, I wasn't 100% satisfied with the performance because it's different. You don't have an audience to, pump you up. So you're basically just kind of playing in a room, and it's like a one-time shot at recording. And, in the studio, when you're recording, you hear something wrong, you back it up and correct it. But it came out great, and I want to thank all the fans that reached out to us that night because it was excellent, and it was a very warm feeling watching all of the feedback from the fans, and I didn't really realize that much love was out there, but it was a lot of love that night, a lot.
Financially, did it work out for you?
That's exactly what I'm talking about when I say it was a lot of love out there because the fans really reached out, and it was just touching, at the end of the night. I showed the guys the numbers because we did reach out with our Cash App, and a lot of the fans, that viewed in, it was a donation only thing, but they were very generous that night, and it made it worthwhile. It put a smile on all the guys' faces. Definitely touched me, and I really want to thank the fans for that.
Okay. So do you anticipate delivering your product that way much more in the future, or what are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking we're going to definitely try another live stream gig. I mean, I don't want to overdo it and watch the numbers drop, because it was really impressive that first time that we did it. But with this pandemic going on, we're definitely going to try a live stream gig again. We, actually had one live performance, public performance, which was last Friday? It was the first Friday of this month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was last Friday. And that was at Mitchell's. And it was a small crowd, but they were very responsive. And they really reached out to us to let us know how much they miss coming out and, hearing the band play. And that was a touching night. It was, like I said, it was a small but a mighty crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And we really loved that.
What did it look like? I mean, did they have people spaced out and
people were spaced out. It wasn't the large normal crowd that we have. And normally at Mitchell's, whenever we would take a break, the DJ would spin and people would do a little line dancing or something like that. So they did participate in that, but they were spaced out. Nobody was touching each other. Of course, we went in protected with our mask and stuff like that. My horn player couldn't put a mask on. He's got to blow his horn. But masks, I guess, were optional. But, it's a different feeling. Like I said, we're used to a sold-out crowd every time we play there.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't happen that night. But it was just good to be out.
Okay. So the venue's policy was that the masks were optional.
The venue's policy was the masks were optional.
Okay.
And we got a lot of feedback on Facebook from fans saying, look, you guys shouldn't even do that. And I understand their concern, because I'm just as concerned. I mean, when this whole pandemic started, all I did was sit, pretty much outside of visiting my grandkids. That was it, my circle. I didn't go anywhere. And, it just felt like that was the best way to deal with it. Mm-hmm. My contribution to trying to help bring an end to this would be to social distance and stay away from people.
Yes. Well, the World Health Organization just came out with an announcement, and it basically was that asymptomatic people don't spread the virus. So that's kind of a 180 from where they were weeks ago about that, and I guess the concern that I have is that $100 billion has been set aside to implement contact tracing. And the contact tracing is something that will primarily target communities where Black people live. So those who will be most subject to it will be us. But then on the other hand, you have one of the major institutions that has created this whole platform of social distancing saying that, well, maybe that's not. But, the world has already been pushed into a fear of each other. So you've got this division and polarization. Some say we need masks. Some say we don't. You have mixed messages that have come from Dr. Tony Fauci. Weeks ago, he said that the masks aren't necessary. He said that only the medical professionals need to be wearing them. And then he reversed that position or contradicted himself. I would say that, because I saw his face, his words, his voice saying exactly the opposite thing weeks later. So there's a whole lot of confusion about it. I would anticipate that at some point, we'll get a much clearer idea of what's right and what's wrong. But, right now it's just basically a time of confusion, and we have no choice but to accept, adapt, and move forward.
Well, we're definitely at the mercy of those that say that they know. And there's a lot of opinions about it. I mean, the scary part about it is it's an invisible killer. The numbers that we see, we have to trust. that is truly the numbers. But I don't know. It's just put me personally into a position. I just said I don't see anything wrong with staying away from people a little bit because I don't know if that's going to help to end it. I don't know. I mean, then flu season's going to come around and they're going to combine flu with coronavirus, and it's going to be even worse. I don't really know what to trust. I'll be honest with you, and I'm not ashamed to say this, but I'm not a type of person that trusts the government because of all of the things that I've seen over the years of what they do. I mean, we're talking going back to the Tuskegee experiment and then some. But I'm not going to doubt that whatever they put out there as a warning, and I'm going to, abide by that and just try to be as careful as I can.
Yes, that's pretty much the choice that we all have. So after coming back from the break, I indicated that there were a few things that I wanted to share about you with the audience. And one thing that stands out in my mind is your dedication to Black history. I've been on Facebook for at least 10 years, and I know that they have changed things with algorithms and whatnot. But there was a time where I would see a post from you every day, and it was a Black history moment, a Black history fact. And I really appreciated the fact that you were putting that information out there. So talk about your connection and your interest in Black history.
Well, Black history to me it's so needed because it's so hidden. I mean, you go through school, if you went through a public school system, you're going to see American history. And pretty much whatever the criteria is from the school, that's all you're going to learn. That's all you're going to know. But there's so much more that's hidden. And there's reasons for it being hidden. I mean, because I post a lot on Facebook each day that I can find what I find. I'm no history buff. I'm no history expert, but I'm just curious. And when I do find something, I like to share it every day. I mean, a lot of people use their Facebook pages for whatever the reasons may be. Mine is basically either music or history. And I will post something every day about that. Like, for instance, today, June 12th, in the year of 1963, I think it was, Medgar Evers was the center of, Black history on that particular day. A lot of people don't even know who Medgar Evers is, but if you look up in the history books, you'll see something about Medgar Evers for that day. A couple of days ago was the day that I think it was yesterday or the day before was the day that Nelson Mandela was sent to prison. It was supposed to have been for life, just for fighting, for freedom over in his country, in his hometown in Africa. He ended up doing 27 years in prison, came out and actually became the first African president over there. But little things like that, you're not going to find them teaching to you in public school. So I have such a desire to share that information. I think we all should, because there's always somebody that can teach me something, somebody that can teach you something. I always, that old saying, each one teach one. And eventually, the more we know, the more we can grow.
It's interesting that you would say that because, we've seen a worldwide response to the murder of one person. And it's like folks all of a sudden have realized that there are some terrible things going on in this country. But what happened to George Floyd has happened to so many other people, many of whom were never known about.
Right.
So, for us to understand what has happened to us, what our history is, what we have to be proud of, what we can look back on and say this needs to be changed. I mean, there are some people who don't even know about Tuskegee 626 because it's been left out of certain history books. And, while we're having this conversation, history books are actually being scrubbed to take even more content out about us or change the narrative. For instance,
exactly.
You saying that the slaves were happy and that they were grateful to their masters for what they got. I mean, you don't hear about the insurrections and the rebellions that were successful. You know, you might hear about one or two, but you don't hear the whole story. You don't understand what happened with Toussaint Louverture in Haiti and how he successfully fought Napoleon. Or
now, let me ask you this real quick.
Yes.
Why do you think most of this history is hidden? Why do you think it's, you know, explained to us in the way that it is? Like you said, changing the narrative.
Right.
Why? What's all that? What is that all about?
Well, one, I think it supports a narrative of Africans or Americans of African descent being perpetual victims, being less than, being minorities, being subjugated, being oppressed. It supports that narrative and justifies, you know, what needs to be changed right now. And I think people around the world are beginning to understand what we've been through and why it needs to change. And on top of that, they're also understanding what role they've played in it. I mean, if you've been enjoying privilege all this time and not being aware of the fact that you've been enjoying it and now you see it, you know, there's going to be a certain degree of guilt that comes along with that, and something in you that compels you to say, well, what can I do? So now it's time for those who are saying, what can I do, to put some action behind their sentiment.
I agree with you on that. I mean, it's been way too long. I mean, like I said the other day, with the George Floyd murder, right on video, right on television. I mean, everybody could see it. You say to yourself, how long could this trial be for these cops that did this? And I want to say they're people. I mean, a lot of people want to be mad at all the police because of what they saw. I'm mad at those guys as people. Their job was supposed to be to protect and serve, but they were in a position that they could have done that, but they didn't. They chose. I mean, you know, the one guy chose to just keep his knee on his neck until he died. And it didn't seem like it bothered him. I mean, he literally had his hand in his pocket for some reason while he was kneeling on him. He didn't feel threatened. I mean, how do you feel if you're threatened by somebody? Why would you put your hand in your pocket? You can't defend yourself.
Yes.
So it was something up with that. It sparked this whole thing off, and you know, you saw the results of it. A lot of protesting took place. Some of it was rioters, some of it was looters, but the majority of it was protesters protesting that this needs to stop. And I totally agree with the protesting. I don't think they should stop protesting. I think they should continue on until something is done. But then whatever it gets done, is it meaningful? Is it from the heart that something changes? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got people out here saying, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. But do you mean it? Because if you meant it, James Byrd, back in, what was it, 98, down in Texas, was drugged by the back of a truck down in Texas. On his way home from work, 3 white guys walk up to him and say, hey, you want to ride? Jump in the back of the pickup. He said, okay. They took him on a ride. Next thing you know, he's in 100 pieces all up and down the road. They thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
And nobody took it to the streets then.
Right.
But that was terrible.
Right. And
that was modern day lynching.
Mm-hmm. That's modern day lynching, and the lynching continues. And there are people who are actually hung with ropes from trees in 2020. We're not hearing about that either.
And we're not hearing about it.
Yes. But there is definitely a change in the air right now, and we can only look forward to things being different than they have been in the future. Let's hope that holds out as the case. Lem Adams, it has been an extreme pleasure to have this conversation with you, and my hope is that this is the first of several that we will have. We're planning to do something online in the very near future, and we will let folks know about that. But we've got to button things up because we have run out of time. I would like
Vince, I just want to say real quick, I really appreciate you calling me to be on the show. I love what you're doing. I want you to keep doing this, brother. We really need more like you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the folks who are listening right now. Thank you for tuning in to Open Door with Vince Robinson. You've been with me and Lem Adams and also JT. Thanks for joining us. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and make it a great day, Cleveland. Peace.
Peace.